Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My wife betrayed me emotionally and financially, so I quietly took back my life and my dignity. I've never been the type of man to think the world owes me anything. Life's been fair enough, a steady job, a decent home, and a family that got by. But turning 40 felt different. For weeks leading up to it, Bianca kept dropping hints, her tone playful and secretive. "Just wait, Jasper," she'd say with a smile. "Something big is coming." At breakfast, I'd catch her gazing at me, her brown eyes dancing like she was holding back a surprise. Even Sienna, our 19-year-old daughter, would nudge me at dinner with strange questions like, "Dad, what's your favorite cake flavor?" Malcolm, my 21-year-old son, started asking about my days off. As a construction supervisor, my hours are long and irregular. But I began to wonder, were they planning something? A surprise party? A dinner? Honestly, I didn't need much. Just a sign that they cared. I let myself believe it. Let that fragile spark of hope grow as the day got closer. I'd come home from work covered in dust, imagining balloons, or maybe a banner with "Happy Birthday" stretched across the living room. So when March 29th, 2025 finally came, I pulled into the driveway with my heart beating just a little quicker. The setting sun cast an orange glow across the sky. I sat in the truck for a second, gripping the wheel, telling myself to stay grounded, not to expect too much. I grabbed my lunchbox, stepped out the gravel crunching beneath my boots, and walked to the door. Turned the key, pushed it open, and nothing. The house was still, dark, empty. No smell of food cooking, no voices, no laughter, no movement. I flicked on the lights, half expecting someone to jump out yelling surprise. But the bulb just buzzed and lit the empty room. The couch sat undisturbed. The TV was off. The kitchen counter was spotless. No cake, no plates, no sign of anything being prepared. I dropped my lunchbox on the table. The dull thud echoed through the silence. I just stood there, staring at the place where my family should have been. My phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls, no "Hey, we're running late." I wandered through the house. My boots left faint dirt trails on the hardwood. Upstairs, the beds were made. Sienna's room smelled faintly of lavender, but her backpack was gone. Malcolm's sneakers weren't by the door. Bianca's purse, usually tossed carelessly on the hall table, was missing. I checked the garage. Her car was gone. My stomach dropped, a heavy, sour twist. I told myself, maybe they're picking something up last minute. Maybe they'll be back any second now. I pictured headlights pulling into the driveway, their faces sheepish and full of apologies. So I waited, sat on the couch, still in my work clothes. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 30. The clock on the wall ticked louder with every passing second, each one cutting deeper into the small, foolish hope I'd held on to. I leaned back, rubbed my face, and felt 40 years settle on me, not as a milestone, but as a weight. Cold, heavy, and empty. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, popped it open, and took a long sip, the bitter taste matching the dull ache spreading in my chest. They weren't coming. I knew it then, deep down, even if I didn't want to admit it. I'd spent weeks building this moment up in my mind, imagining their faces, their voices, some kind of celebration to mark my 40th. But the house stayed quiet, and that silence said everything. I wasn't worth the effort not to them. I set the beer down, my hands trembling just slightly, and stared at the blank TV screen. My own reflection looked back at me, tired eyes, gray creeping into my beard. A man who thought he mattered. 40 years old, and this was it. An empty house, a warm beer, and a family that hadn't even left a note. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that they forgot, or that I'd convinced myself they wouldn't. Either way, I couldn't move from that couch. Not yet. I told myself I'd wait a little longer, just in case. But that spark was gone, snuffed out by the cold, quiet truth of my birthday night. 3 hours later, I was still sitting there, the beer now lukewarm in my hand. The house was as still and hollow as a ghost town. I'd been staring at the wall, turning it all over in my mind, what I'd done wrong, why no one had bothered to call. My phone sat untouched on the coffee table, its screen black and mocking. I checked it at least a dozen times. Nothing. No missed calls, no messages. Just the same old lock screen. Me and Bianca from last summer, smiling at a barbecue. I didn't want to feel sorry for myself. But damn, it was hard not to. 40 years old, and this was how it went. Out of habit more than hope, I grabbed my phone again and opened Instagram. I don't scroll much, too many fake smiles, too many ads, but something told me to look. And there it was, staring me down like a gut punch. A photo. Bianca, Sienna, Malcolm, and her parents, Greg and Michelle, all grinning on a beach. White sand stretched behind them, waves rolling in, the sun setting in golden light. Bianca had a cocktail in her hand, sunglasses pushed up on her head, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. Sienna was splashing in the water. Malcolm stood shirtless, holding a beer, smirking at the camera. Greg and Michelle lounged in chairs, smug as ever. Then I saw the caption on Malcolm's post. "He won't even notice we're gone, LOL." I read it again and again, just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. My own son wrote that. My entire damn family was at some fancy resort, living it up, while I sat alone in the dark. And they thought it was funny. I kept scrolling. Sienna had posted a story sipping a drink with a tiny umbrella, tagging the location as Paradise Cove Resort. Bianca had uploaded a selfie with Michelle, captioned, "Family time is the best time. Family time. Without me." I dropped the phone onto the couch like it burned me and stood up, legs unsteady, chest tight like a vice was clamped around it. My hands curled into fists. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of whiskey, the good stuff Bianca had given me for Christmas, and poured a glass. No ice, no mixer, just straight. I took a long gulp, felt the burn slide down my throat, then leaned against the counter, staring blankly at the floor. They didn't forget. That was what cut the deepest. This wasn't a slip-up, not some last-minute mix-up where they meant to call but didn't. They planned this, packed their bags, boarded a plane, and left me behind laughing about it like I was a punchline. I pictured them at the airport, checking in, probably saying something like, "Oh, Jasper's fine, he's always working anyway." I took another sip, slower this time, letting the whiskey sit on my tongue. The house felt enormous now, every corner echoing with silence pressing in like a weight. I made my way back to the couch, glass in hand, and picked up the phone again. Zoomed in on that photo, Malcolm's smug grin, Sienna waving without a care, Bianca mid-laugh. They looked happy, happier than I'd seen them in a long time, happier than they ever looked with me. I set the glass down and rubbed my eyes, feeling the sting of something I wasn't ready to call tears, not yet. I wanted to call. I wanted to text and shout, "What the hell is this? It's my birthday." But I didn't. What would I even say? Come home. Explain? They'd probably just laugh again, or worse, offer some half-hearted apology wrapped in pity. I didn't want that. I didn't want their excuses. I scrolled back to Malcolm's caption. "He won't even notice we're gone, LOL." And it looped in my head like a bad song. He was wrong. I noticed. I noticed every goddamn second of it. The whiskey bottle sat half empty now, so I poured another glass. My hand didn't shake this time. I wasn't angry in the loud, explosive way. This was quieter, deeper, like a slow flame catching at the bottom of my gut. They thought I wouldn't care. Thought I'd shrug, maybe go to bed and not give it a second thought. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I took a sip and leaned back, letting the silence wrap around me like a blanket. They were wrong about me, and I'd make sure they knew it. Not tonight. Tonight, I'd drink my whiskey and let that fire grow. Tomorrow, that would be something else entirely. By the time I decided I was done just sitting here wallowing, the whiskey bottle was nearly empty. It was past midnight, my birthday officially over, and the house still echoed with that hollow silence. I wasn't drunk, not really. Just buzzed enough for my anger to sharpen at the edges. Malcolm's words kept circling like vultures. "He won't even notice we're gone, LOL." They thought I was blind. Some dumb workhorse too busy or too clueless to see what they were doing. But I saw it now. All of it. Clear as day. And I wasn't about to let it slide. I grabbed my laptop from the coffee table, flipped it open, and started digging. First stop, Instagram. I saved every post and story they'd shared, Bianca's selfies, Sienna's beach clips, Malcolm's smug little updates. Screenshot after screenshot. Each timestamp told a story. They'd been gone for at least 2 days, maybe more, judging by the resort's check-in photos. Then I logged into our joint bank account. I'm the one who usually manages the bills, keeps everything organized, so I knew exactly where to look. My stomach dropped when I saw a $3,800 cash withdrawal, dated 3 days ago. Not a card transaction. Cash. Quiet, intentional, like they didn't want a trail. I leaned back, rubbing my jaw. I had just given Malcolm that same amount last month, said it was for a deposit on his new apartment. He'd hugged me, said, "Thanks, Dad, you're the best." I'd felt proud. Now it looked like I'd unknowingly bankrolled their little escape. I kept scrolling through the records, fingers flying as the puzzle started fitting together. Small charges to gas, a coffee shop near the airport, but nothing big enough to cover a full resort stay. Then it hit me, Bianca's emergency credit card. The one she insisted was just for unexpected things, car repairs, that sort of stuff. She kept the statements tucked away in a drawer upstairs, under old tax files, like she assumed I'd never look. The whiskey buzzed in my veins as I climbed the stairs and pulled open the drawer. It squeaked too loud in the quiet house, and there they were. Envelopes stacked neatly, untouched. I tore one open, dated last month, and my eye scanned the charges. $1,200 at a spa, $800 at a high-end clothing boutique, $450 for lunch with Michelle at a place I'd never heard of. Each month told the same story, thousands spent, never mentioned. And the latest statement? Unopened. Paradise Cove Resort, $1,500, plus a few hundred more in miscellaneous extras. Total balance, $92,000. Spread out over a year. I dropped the papers onto the bed, hands shaking. Not from the alcohol, from the sheer weight of it all. This wasn't just a birthday slight. This was betrayal. A secret life. I headed back downstairs, grabbed a notebook, and started writing it all down: dates, amounts, everything. The facts. Cold and clear. The dependable Jasper Hale. The guy who showed up early, stayed late. Who paid the mortgage, fixed the leaks, skipped vacations so Sienna could go to college. That guy had been erased. Replaced by a walking ATM. Someone they could step over while sipping cocktails and laughing. I poured the last of the whiskey and stared at my messy handwriting, the numbers screaming off the page. I didn't cry. That's not me. But my throat tightened, like something was lodged in it. I thought about everything I'd sacrificed to build this life, the years, the missed weekends, the hours I'd never get back. And for what? So they could run off and treat me like a joke? I closed the notebook with a snap and leaned back, the couch groaning beneath me. The anger wasn't loud anymore. It was cold now. Steady. Like a river cutting through stone. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to break things. That's not who I am. But I was done being invisible. I'd always been the guy who kept quiet, let things slide, trusted too easily. But not anymore. I took a slow sip of whiskey, let the burn settle, and made myself a promise right there in the dark. They'd remember me, not the old Jasper, the one they ignored and stepped over, but this version, the one they forgot. The one who'd been watching all along. And I'd start by making sure they couldn't run from what they'd done, not from me, not ever again. 2 days after my birthday, I woke up to the same quiet house, that same heavy emptiness pressing on my chest. The whiskey bottle still sat on the counter, a silent reminder of that first night. I didn't touch it. I'd spent the last 48 hours keeping myself busy: work, errands, anything to distract from the hollow space where my family used to be. I didn't call, didn't text. I'd already seen enough on Instagram to know they were still at the resort, probably stretched out by the pool, while I picked at cold leftovers alone. My phone stayed silent. No apologies. No check-ins. Nothing. It was like I'd been erased. But that changed on the second day. I was sitting on the couch, flipping through channels I didn't care about, when my phone started buzzing. WhatsApp lit up, one message after another. Like they'd all suddenly remembered I existed. I picked it up, thumb hovering over the screen, not sure I even wanted to look. The first message was from Bianca. "Jasper, where are you?" Like I was the one who'd disappeared. Then Sienna. "Dad, are you okay? Please answer." Malcolm chimed in with his usual, "Yo, Dad, what's up? You good?" I scrolled through 49 messages in total, piling up over a few hours. There were voice notes too. Sienna's voice came through soft, nervous. "Dad, I'm worried. Just let us know you're fine." Bianca sent a longer one later. "Jasper, please don't shut me out. We're flying back early. Talk to me." I sat there staring at the screen, the words running together. Part of me wanted to feel something, maybe relief, maybe anger. But there was nothing. It was too late for that. They'd had days to reach out. Days. And now, what? Because they were scared I'd snapped. I set the phone down and leaned back, hands resting on my knees. The house creaked around me. The fridge hummed softly in the background. I could have answered. Could have typed out, "I'm here. Where the hell were you?" But I didn't. They didn't deserve that yet. Instead, I had an idea. I grabbed my phone again and opened Instagram. Flipped through my camera roll. There wasn't much: some work shots, a photo of my truck, and then one from yesterday. After my shift, I'd stopped by the grocery store and picked up a cheap chocolate cake. Small, kind of pitiful, with "Happy Birthday" scribbled in messy icing. I'd snapped a picture of myself holding it in the kitchen. No smile. Just me and the cake under harsh fluorescent light. I hadn't planned on posting it. Didn't even eat the damn thing. But now it felt right. I uploaded it, no filter, no caption, no tags. Just the timestamp. March 28th, 2025, 7:42 p.m. I hit post and watched it go live. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't some grand screw you. It was a marker. A quiet little flag in the ground. I'm still here. I see you. And I'm not the one who disappeared. I tossed the phone onto the cushion beside me and stood up, stretching my arms overhead until my back popped from too many hours slouched on the couch. I walked to the window and looked out at the dark street. Warm yellow light glowed from the neighbors' windows, families inside doing regular, everyday things. My house felt like a shell, but I wasn't sad anymore. Not really. Those 49 messages still echoed in my head. They weren't apologies. Not real ones. They were panic, maybe a hint of guilt, but not remorse. Bianca's "don't shut me out" stuck with me the most. She didn't get it. I wasn't shutting her out, she'd locked me out days ago. And now, suddenly, she wanted back in like nothing had happened. I shook my head, a dry laugh escaping. Sienna's voice note echoed next. Her worry pulled at me a little. She's always been my girl. But even she had gone along with all this. Malcolm? He'd probably just shrug if I called him out. I walked to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, and leaned against the counter, sipping slowly. My phone buzzed again, probably message number 50, but I ignored it. They'd see the post soon enough. They'd know I wasn't sulking or lost. I was here, watching, waiting. The cake still sat on the counter, untouched. The icing had begun to crack. I didn't need it, and I didn't need their last-minute words either. What I needed was something they hadn't offered yet. Answers. And I'd get them, one way or another. For now, I'd let them squirm. Let them wonder. Because I wasn't the same guy they thought I was. Not anymore. 3 days after my birthday, I was sitting in the living room. The TV was on low, some dumb game show humming in the background. I hadn't answered any of those 49 messages. Hadn't called. Barely looked at my phone since posting the cake photo. It was late afternoon. Sunlight slanted through the blinds, laying stripes across the carpet. I had just gotten home from work, still in my dusty jacket, when the doorbell rang. It wasn't gentle. It was sharp. Insistent. The kind of knock meant to be answered. I stood up slowly, my boots heavy on the floor, and walked to the door. I didn't know what I was expecting, but something in my gut told me it was them. I turned the knob and opened the door. There they were, Bianca, Sienna, Malcolm, and her parents, Greg and Michelle, all standing on my porch like some awkward family photo. Bianca stood at the front, holding a shiny gift bag, her smile tight and forced, the kind she wears when she's nervous. Sienna and Malcolm stayed back. Sienna picked at her nails. Malcolm stared down at his shoes. Greg stood with his arms crossed. Michelle with her lips pressed into a thin line, like she was sucking on a lemon. I didn't say a word, just leaned against the doorframe, watching them, letting the silence stretch. Bianca shifted, the gift bag crinkling in her hands. Jasper, she began, voice too bright. We're back. I wanted to see you. I didn't move, didn't nod, just kept my eyes on her. She hesitated, then lifted the bag like it was a truce. I got you something. For your birthday. I glanced at it. Probably some overpriced shirt or watch she thought would patch this over. I didn't take it. Instead, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened Instagram. I held up my phone, Malcolm's post glowing on the screen. He won't even notice we're gone, LOL. I turned it so they could all see, my thumb resting just along the edge. The air shifted instantly, like someone had sucked the oxygen out of the room. Bianca's smile vanished. Sienna's head snapped up, eyes wide. Malcolm shifted uncomfortably, muttering something under his breath. Greg cleared his throat, but I didn't give him the chance. I looked straight at him, his smug, sunburned face, and said, You're not welcome here. My voice was calm, low, but it cut through the silence like a blade. Greg blinked, his mouth opening, then closing. Michelle stepped forward, her tone sharp. Jasper, that's uncalled for. I didn't let her finish. I said what I said. You don't get to walk in here. Not after this. I nodded toward the phone, then stepped aside just enough to let Bianca, Sienna, and Malcolm through. You three can come in. They can't. Bianca hesitated, glancing back at her parents. But I didn't move. Greg huffed, turning to Michelle like he expected her to argue. She just glared, hands on her hips. After a long second, Bianca gave Sienna and Malcolm a small nod, and they slipped past me into the house. I shut the door behind them, leaving Greg and Michelle on the porch, their shadows still stretching across the boards. Inside, the living room felt tighter with them in it. Sienna perched on the edge of the couch, her knees bouncing. Malcolm leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes averted. Bianca stood frozen in the middle of the room, still gripping the gift bag like it might save her. I walked past her, set my phone down on the coffee table, and turned to face them. So, I said, hands in my pockets, how was the beach? Bianca flinched, her mouth opening, then closing. Sienna looked like she might cry, fingers twisting in her lap. Malcolm shrugged. It was fine, he muttered. I nodded, letting that hang there. Fine, I repeated. Good to know. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The weight of it all was already sitting on them. Bianca took a small step forward, her voice soft. Jasper, we didn't mean for it to be like this. It was supposed to be. I held up a hand, cutting her off. Don't. Not yet. I looked to Sienna, those big eyes swimming, and then to Malcolm, jaw clenched tight. You're here now. That's something. But them? I jerked my chin toward the door. They don't get a pass. And neither do you. Not yet. I sat down in my chair by the window and picked up the remote, clicking the TV off. Silence fell, just their breathing and the faint hum of the fridge in the background. They wanted to talk, to explain, but I wasn't ready to hear it. Not until I knew they truly felt this. I'd let them in, sure. But this wasn't their playground anymore. It was mine. And I was done being the guy they thought they could leave behind. The air in the kitchen was thick as I stood there, facing Bianca, Sienna, and Malcolm. They'd followed me in after I closed the door on Greg and Michelle. And now it was just the four of us gathered around the table like some fractured, messed up family meeting. I grabbed the folder from the counter, the one I'd been filling with everything I'd found. Bank statements, screenshots, credit card charges. It felt heavier than it should have, solid in my hands, and I dropped it onto the table with a loud thud. The sound made Sienna flinch, her eyes flicking to it like it might bite. Bianca eased into a chair, still clutching that ridiculous gift bag. Malcolm stayed standing, arms crossed tight over his chest. I didn't sit. I stood there, watching them, then finally asked the question that had been burning inside me since I saw that Instagram post. When did I become invisible to you? My voice was steady, quieter than I felt, but it hit like a punch. Bianca's head jerked up, her mouth opening like she had a response ready, but nothing came out. Sienna stared down at the table, her fingers gently tracing the grain in the wood. Malcolm shifted on his feet, his jaw tightening. I opened the folder and spread the pages out across the table. $3,800 withdrawn from our savings. $92,000 charged to that secret credit card. Resort receipts with dates that lined up exactly with my birthday. Then I pointed to Malcolm's post, the LOL practically glowing on the screen. You think this is funny? I said, tapping it with my finger. You think ditching me while you're all off sipping cocktails is some kind of joke? Bianca found her voice then. She leaned forward, hands clasped tightly together. Jasper, it wasn't like that. We were going to surprise you, do something special when we got back. It got out of hand. It sounded rehearsed, like she'd been reciting it in her head the whole flight home. I didn't buy it. I flipped to a screenshot of a message she'd sent Michelle weeks earlier, one I found on her old phone, buried in the closet. He'll be fine, Mom. Let's just go. I held it up, watched her face drain of color. This doesn't look like a surprise, I said. This looks like you plan to leave me. Malcolm spoke up then, voice rough. Dad, it was just a dumb post. I didn't mean it like that. I turned to him, eyes sharp. You didn't mean it? You wrote it, Malcolm. You laughed about it. You took the money I gave you for your place and spent it on this. He looked away, shoulders sagging. But he didn't argue. That's when Sienna started to cry. Quiet little sobs that made my chest ache. She's always been the soft one, my little girl who used to curl up in my lap whenever the world got too big. Dad, she said, voice cracking, it was supposed to be for you too. We were all going to go. Me, you, Mom, Malcolm, but then Grandpa said. She trailed off, wiping her eyes. I leaned in, palms flat on the table. What, Sienna? She swallowed hard, glanced at Bianca, who still wouldn't look at me. He said you'd bring down the vibe, that you're always so serious, that it'd be more fun without you. The words hit like a hammer. I straightened slowly, turning my gaze to Bianca. Is that true? She didn't answer at first, just stared down at the table, her fingers twisting together. Jasper, it wasn't my idea, she finally said, voice small. Dad kept pushing and I didn't know how to say no. I let out a dry, bitter laugh and shook my head. You didn't know how to say no to your dad, but you knew how to say no to me. You knew how to leave me behind, how to take our money and run off with them. I snapped the folder shut, the sound sharp in the silence. I've been working my butt off for this family, for you, for the kids, and this is what I get? You let Greg decide I'm not worth it? Sienna reached for my hand, her fingers cold. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't want it to be like this. I looked at her, saw the sincerity in her eyes. She meant it, but it didn't undo the pain. Malcolm muttered something under his breath, maybe an apology, but he still wouldn't meet my eyes. Bianca stepped closer, standing now. Jasper, we can fix this. Please. I stepped back, out of her reach. Fix it. You don't fix something you broke on purpose. I held the folder up. This is what you did. You don't get to walk in here with a gift bag and a few tears and expect it to go away. The room went quiet again, save for Sienna's soft sniffles and the steady hum of the fridge. I looked at them, my wife, my kids, and felt the betrayal hit deeper than I expected. They had chosen Greg's version of fun over me, and I wasn't sure I could forgive that. After the confrontation in the kitchen, I barely slept. The house felt different now, less like ours, more like just mine. Bianca, Sienna, and Malcolm had drifted off, Sienna still crying. Malcolm slinking off to his old room. Bianca hovering like she wanted to say more, but didn't dare. I'd laid it all out, the money, the lies, the way they'd made me feel, and I wasn't backing down. The next morning, I was up before the sun. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, laptop open. It was time to start making changes. I moved quickly, clicking through bank accounts, opening a new one in my name only. I transferred half our savings into it, enough to cover 3 months of the mortgage and utilities. The rest? Bianca could figure that out. It was time she pulled her weight. I canceled the joint credit card, the one she thought I didn't know about, and set up a direct payment for Sienna's college tuition. From now on, the money would go straight to the school. No more middlemen. No more vanishing funds. By the time my coffee had gone cold, I'd drawn a line in the sand. I wasn't kicking them out, not yet, but everything was going to change. Bianca came downstairs around 8 o'clock, her hair messy, eyes puffy like she hadn't slept either. She paused in the doorway, watching me pack up the laptop. "Jasper, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice unsteady. I didn't look up, just kept stacking papers, making sure I'm not invisible anymore. I stood. "You're in the guest room now. Separate accounts. You pay half the bills. Sienna's tuition is covered, but that's it. No more free rides." Her face fell, but I kept going. "And I changed the locks. You'll get a key when I know you're serious about this." She stared at me, stunned, then slowly sank into a chair. "Jasper, this is crazy. We can talk about it." I cut her off as I stood, grabbing my keys. "We talked last night. You didn't listen then. Now you will." And I walked out, leaving her there, and drove to the hardware store. I bought new deadbolts, heavy-duty ones, and spent the morning installing them. The drill buzzed in my hands, the noise drowning out everything else in my head. Malcolm came down just as I was finishing the back door, his hair messy and still in yesterday's clothes. "Dad, what's with the locks?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. I tightened the last screw and stood up, brushing sawdust off my jeans. "It's my house too," I said. "If you want in, you knock. If you want to stay, you start acting like it." He frowned, but didn't argue, just shuffled back upstairs. Sienna was different. She came out later, eyes red but dry, and sat on the porch step while I tested the new key. "Dad," she said quietly, "I don't want you to hate me." I stopped what I was doing and looked at her, my little girl, all grown up and caught in this mess. "I don't hate you," I said softer than I meant to, "but I can't trust you yet. You have to show me you mean it." She nodded, hugging her knees, and I felt that familiar ache for her, the one that never really goes away. I finished up and went inside, resetting the Wi-Fi password next. Something simple, Jasper 40, but they wouldn't guess it. Bianca tried to talk again when I came back in, following me to the living room. "This isn't you, Jasper. Locking us out, splitting everything, it's not fair." I turned to her, hands in my pockets. "Fair? You took our money, left me here, let your dad call me dead. Wait, that's not fair. This is me surviving." She flinched, but I didn't stop. "You want to fix this? Earn it. Respect is gone, you have to bring it back." She said nothing, just stood there with tears in her eyes. Malcolm stormed out then, grabbing his jacket. "This is Dad," he snapped. "I'm out." He slammed the door, the new lock clicking shut behind him. I didn't chase him, he'd figure it out, or he wouldn't. Sienna stayed, hovering nearby all day, helping with small things, handing me a screwdriver, making coffee. She didn't say much, but she was there. That was something. By nightfall, the house felt solid again, locked up tight, mine in a way it hadn't been before. Bianca moved her things to the guest room without a word, her footsteps heavy on the stairs. I sat on the couch, the new key in my hand, looking around. This wasn't revenge. It was a wall, a boundary carved in stone. They'd have to climb it if they wanted back in, and I'd be watching, waiting to see if they could. A week after changing the locks, things settled into a strange new normal. Bianca stayed quiet and distant in the guest room, coming and going without much talk. Sienna stuck around, more, her presence soft but steady, like she was trying to piece something back together. Malcolm hadn't come back since he stormed out, and I didn't push. Let him cool off, figure out what he wanted. I kept busy with work. The construction site was a welcome distraction, the noise of hammers and saws drowning out the chaos at home. But trouble came back again one Saturday morning, just when I thought I could finally breathe. I was in the garage, tinkering with my truck's oil filter, when I heard a car pull into the driveway. I wiped my hands on a rag and stepped outside, squinting against the bright sun. Greg's silver SUV was parked there, the engine still running as he climbed out, his face flushed and tight, like he'd been simmering all week. Michelle stayed inside the passenger seat, arms crossed, glaring through the windshield. I leaned against the garage door, rag in hand, and waited. He strode up, stopping a few feet away, his voice loud enough to wake the neighbors. "Jasper, what the hell do you think you're doing?" he barked. "Locking my daughter out, cutting her off, you're tearing this family apart." I didn't flinch. I just looked at him, letting him puff himself up. He was taller than me, broader too, but I wasn't intimidated anymore. "Tearing it apart?" I said, keeping my voice steady. "Funny, I thought that started when you took them all to a resort and left me behind." He waved a dismissive hand. "That was a trip, a break. You're blowing this way out of proportion, acting like some midlife crisis nutcase." I stepped forward, closing the gap just enough to make him step back. "A break," I repeated. "How much did that little break cost, Greg?" He blinked, caught off guard, then shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe $7,500. I nodded, letting the number hang in the air, then said, I put $25,000 into Sienna's education last year, books, dorm, classes. What have you done for her future? His mouth opened, then shut. His face grew redder. I didn't stop. You don't get to stand here and lecture me about family. You decided I wasn't worth bringing along. Convinced Bianca I'd ruin your fun. And now you're mad I'm not just rolling over for it. Michelle climbed out of the car, her heels clicking sharply on the pavement. Jasper, you're being ridiculous, she snapped. Bianca's a wreck because of you. She says you're cold, unreasonable. I cut her off, my voice sharp now. She's a wreck because she got caught. You don't get to spin this on me. Greg took a step closer, pointing a finger. Watch how you talk to us. We are her parents, and I'm her husband. I fired back. Or I was, until you helped her forget that. They stood there, fuming, but I didn't back down. I'd had enough of their high and mighty act. Go home, I said, turning back toward the garage. This isn't your fight. Greg huffed, muttering something about me being ungrateful, then stormed back to the car. Michelle followed, throwing one last glare over her shoulder. Their tires squealed as they peeled out, and I watched them go, the rag still clenched in my fist. Later that day, I checked Facebook should have known better and saw Bianca's latest post. Sometimes people change, and not for the better. Midlife hits hard. It had a dozen likes, a few sad emojis, comments from her friends saying, stay strong, girl. I stared at the words, twisting in my gut. She was painting me as the bad guy, the cold one, who snapped for no reason. I could have posted something back, dumped the receipts, screenshots, the truth. But I didn't give her that story. The people who mattered already knew what really happened. That night, my buddy Pete from work called, checking if I was okay. He'd seen the post. She's full of it, he said. We all know you, man. You don't flip out over nothing. I thanked him, hung up, and settled onto the couch. The house was quiet again. A little later, Sienna came downstairs, curling up next to me with a mug of tea. Dad, she said softly, I don't care what Mom says, you're not the one who's wrong. I put an arm around her, feeling her lean into me, and nodded. Thanks, kid. I didn't need the whole world to see it. I had the folder, the facts, and the loyalty of those who stuck around. Greg could yell, Bianca could post, but I knew the truth. That was enough for now. Weeks passed since Greg's outburst in the driveway, and the house settled into a rhythm I could live with. It wasn't exactly peaceful, more like a ceasefire, with everyone figuring out where they stood. Bianca kept to the guest room, coming and going with her head down, her words short and careful. Sienna was around a lot, dropping by after classes, her quiet presence a lifeline I hadn't realized I needed. Malcolm, though, had been a ghost since he stormed out, and I let him be. He was my son, sure, but a man now, and men have to face their own choices. Then one Tuesday, my phone rang while I was eating lunch at the construction site, sandwich in one hand, dust covering my boots. It was Malcolm. I set the sandwich down, wiped my hands on my jeans, and answered. Dad, he said, voice low, can we talk? I leaned against the truck, the sun hot on my neck. Yeah, I said. What's up? He hesitated. I'm in a jam. Rent's due, and I'm short. Can you help? I didn't answer right away, just listened to the sounds around me, the drills whining, the guys shouting. Part of me wanted to say no, let him sink a little, feel the weight of all he'd thrown at me. But he was still my kid. Come by tonight, I said. We'll figure it out. He showed up around 7, hoodie rumpled, hair a mess, looking like he hadn't slept. I let him in, the new lock clicking behind us, and we sat at the kitchen table. How short are you? I asked, pouring him a glass of water. He stared at it without drinking. 600, he said. I thought I had it, but work cut my hours. I nodded and pulled out my laptop. All right, we're not just throwing money at it. Show me everything, bills, pay stubs, all of it. He blinked, surprised, then dug into his backpack and pulled out crumpled papers. We spent the next hour going through everything: rent, phone bill, the little he'd saved. I showed him how I'd always managed things for the house, tracking every dollar, making it stretch. See this? I said, pointing at the screen. You plan ahead. You don't get stuck. He nodded slowly, like it was finally sinking in. By the end, we'd built a spreadsheet, nothing fancy, just numbers and rows. I handed him $600 in cash for my new account, but made him write it down. You owe me, I said. Not because I'm mad, just so you learn. He looked at me, really looked, and said, I get it, Dad. He didn't say sorry, not out loud, but later that night, I noticed his Instagram was gone. No posts, no profile. There was just a blank space where that caption used to be. He asked if he could come by on Sundays just to hang out, and I said, yeah. I felt something shift between us. Sienna kept coming to her visits more regular now. She'd sit with me on the couch watching old movies or help out in the garage, handing me tools while I worked. One night, before leaving, she hugged me tight and whispered, I'm glad you're my dad. That hit me hard, a small crack of light in all the darkness. Bianca was still a puzzle. Some days, she'd try nostalgia, talking about when we met and how we'd laughed over cheap pizza. Other days, she'd blame me, saying I'd pushed her away with the locks and the separate accounts. I didn't bite either way. You pushed first, I'd say. Then she'd go quiet and retreat to her room. I wasn't holding my breath for her to change. She liked her story too much, the one where I was the problem. But I didn't need her to see me anymore. Malcolm's Sundays became routine, him showing up with coffee, us working on his budget, or just talking. He didn't say much about the trip, but I could tell he was carrying it, that guilt simmering beneath his tough exterior. Sienna stayed caught in the middle, loving us both, but she chose me more often. Her loyalty was clear in the way she lingered. The fractures were still there, big, jagged, raw, but these first steps, these moments with my kids, felt like something solid. I'd let Bianca find her own path. I'd already let go of needing her to come back. The kids, though, they were enough to keep me going, enough to start rebuilding. A month after my 40th birthday, I woke up to a quiet house, the kind of quiet that didn't feel empty anymore, just still, like the world was holding its breath. It was a Saturday, the sun creeping through the blinds, casting soft gold across the living room. I sat up on the couch where I'd fallen asleep, a blanket tangled around my legs, the TV off for once. My coffee mug from last night sat cold on the table beside my phone, which buzzed with a new email. I rubbed my eyes, stretched, and picked up the phone. It was from my divorce lawyer, short and simple, saying Bianca's attorney had reached out. No fight, no drama, just paperwork moving forward. I set the phone down, leaned back, and let it sink in. It wasn't a shock. Bianca and I hadn't really been together since she came back, not in any real way. The guest room, the separate accounts, the way we barely talked, it was all leading here. I didn't feel sad, though maybe I should have. Instead, I felt clear, like I could see myself again. Not just the guy who paid bills or fixed things, but me, Jasper Hale, a man who'd made it through the mess. I got up, made fresh coffee, and stood by the kitchen window watching the street wake up. Kids rode bikes. A neighbor waved as he mowed his lawn. My truck sat in the driveway, dusty but solid like me. I thought about that night a month ago, the dark house, the whiskey, the Instagram post that started it all. It felt far away now, like it happened to someone else. I'd changed since then, not loud or flashy, but deep, in a way I could feel in my bones. Later that day, I opened my laptop and logged into Facebook. My status still said married, but that no longer fit. I clicked edit, my fingers hovering before I typed. It's complicated. I hit save, watched it update, and leaned back. It wasn't a grand statement, no one needed the details, but it was true. Life was complicated. Family was messy. Love left scars, some visible, some hidden. I scrolled through my feed and saw a picture Sienna had posted the night before, her and me in the garage, me holding a wrench, her laughing, captioned best dad ever. I smiled. A real one. The kind that warms you up inside. Malcolm had texted earlier too, saying he'd be by tomorrow with coffee, like always. They were still here, my kids, helping me pick up the pieces. Bianca was upstairs, probably packing more of her things. She'd been moving out bit by bit, quietly, without fuss. I didn't stop her. She'd made her choice long before the papers arrived, and I'd made mine. I stepped outside, the cool air brushing my face, and sat on the porch steps. The neighborhood buzzed around me, alive and normal, and I felt part of it again. Not stuck, not invisible. I thought about the last month, Greg's yelling, Bianca's stories, the way Sienna and Malcolm returned slowly but surely. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. My phone buzzed again. A text from Pete, my work buddy, who'd seen the status. You good, man? I typed back, yeah, better than good. He sent a thumbs up, and I set the phone down, looking out at the street. Turning 40 wasn't what I'd expected, no party, no big celebration, but it gave me something better, clarity. I could see myself now, not as the guy they forgot, but as the one who stood up, who claimed his place. Sienna saw it, she stuck by me. Malcolm was starting to prove with his Sunday visits that he wasn't running anymore. Even my crew at work noticed, one saying, last week, you seemed different, Hale. Lighter. The weight of feeling invisible, of carrying everyone else without them knowing, was gone. I let it go, piece by piece, and built something new. The divorce wasn't a loss, it was a door closing, so I could open another. I stood up, brushed off my jeans, and went back inside. The house smelled like coffee, like home. I grabbed my mug and took a long sip. I didn't need balloons or a cake. I didn't need Bianca's gift bag or Greg's approval. Being seen by my kids, my friends, and most of all, by myself, that was the gift I'd claimed. 40 wasn't a milestone they gave me. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.